The following video series will provide many perspectives through the personal narratives of elders and recognized knowledge holders. These videos will also explore how the dispossession of land from Indigenous peoples took place throughout what is now called Canada. This project is intended for educational use only. In our words. As Indigenous peoples, our ways of knowing are strongly connected to our history, land, animals, and the sky. It is through our history that we will be guided into the future. Our words and our land are the truth.
So the Indigenous people fought in the War of 1812 to protect their own autonomy. They weren't fighting to protect the British land, because at that time there simply wasn't any. Those were still Indigenous lands. And it didn't take long before they started to resist. And they started to rebel. And of course, again, it was Chief Shingwak and a small band of people that started a rebellion. Chief Shingwak was arrested. He was brought down to Yorktown, what is now Toronto, and he went to court. And he told the judge, "You kick our people like dogs, and these dogs are going to bite back." The Crown at the time said, "We can't charge this man, and we have to let him go, because we don't have agreements with them. We don't have treaties with them." They never surrendered their legal autonomy or jurisdiction over how they govern affairs in their lands. But even at that time, when he was arrested, the people were ready to go to war. It was a very volatile time. So of course the British sent Robinson down to make the treaty and negotiated what Canada calls the cede and surrender of our traditional territory, which is false. Which afterwards he actually bragged to the Crown, stating that he was able to get so much land for only $2,500. The British actually offered the Anishinaabe, our tribe, a couple of wampum belts. One of them was a Great Covenant chain wampum belt. And so the idea of that belt was that if one nation was in need, they would roll what was needed down the belt, and it would go to the other person, because the two people are carrying the belt. And what happened was, the British, they just kept asking for this, asking for that. They kept taking. And nothing was rolling our way. Everything was rolling their way. And because the British kept taking and taking and taking, and not giving anything back, it forced a revolt. And it forced what we know now as the Robinson-Huron Treaty. There was over 20 chiefs that signed, and there was some British officials. But what's funny is that years later we found out that the British that actually signed the treaty, that negotiated the treaty, were actually bragging to the Crown after about how much they got for so little. And so the written document that states a land surrender to the Crown and her heirs forever, and it gives mining special privileges. And so the written document is an absolute lie. Our oral history and our songs state that the treaty was something different. And so I have to question the very foundation of treaty right now as we know it. What they agreed to was that the British were allowed to live in Indigenous territories for a little bit, and were allowed to dig the depth of a plow to feed themselves for gardens. And that it wasn't a permanent agreement, that it was a conditional agreement, and that the waters were never to be surrendered, or the land, and that the British were to be given free passage on that land. That's what I was told. So this is what I'd like to see done with the Robinson-Huron Treaty, because it was one of the largest land thefts in Canadian history. And our people really fought hard, and they died so that our people could have healthy land and animals to eat. Right now, under the current idea of treaty, everything is being polluted and destroyed. It's done. It's over. We need new agreements. We need something that's more realistic.